Hi, good morning. I'm Katie Dunlap, and I lead the Unified Commerce and Marketing practice group for IBM Blue Wolf. Blue Wolf is the division of IBM that is Salesforce only, and that's the implementation services that we offer. And I'm here today with Katie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi. Thanks, everybody. I'm Katie Kremitis. I'm an engagement manager with Blue Wolf. So we'll be talking about the customer experience or customer-centered transformation. So let's start at looking at the evolution of business models and how they've really transformed in reaching the customer. So we've seen this with pop-ups years back where they're really retailers and CPG organizations are bringing their products out to the consumer as opposed to bringing the consumer to their shop. They're popping up shops everywhere to get their brand out. We've seen this with subscription-based models. One example is Stitch, where it's a US brand, and you can, they take inventory of your wardrobe and what you like to wear, and they'll send you ideas of what you'd want to try on, and you don't actually have to pay for it until you purchase it. So you'd send it back if you don't like it. And that has really changed the game for that personalized shopping experience. Another disruption in that transformation of the business model is Amazon, where they're really pushing the boundaries and forcing companies to work together and find new ways of reaching that consumer. So while they're trying to reach their customer in new ways with personalized shopping experiences, they're collecting a whole bunch of data. And we see that across different teams and different technologies. And it's really, how do we bring that together, bring the teams and technologies together to really create that customized experience for that shopper?
So as Katie mentioned, the importance and the reason why we care about data and the fact that we need to collect that information in order to make that experience more personal is that, as she mentioned, the consumer is actually driving this disruption. And most retail brands and CPG organizations need to address that. And they're trying to create a different type of personal relationship with their consumers. And what that requires them to do is to really use the data in order to activate and create intelligent, smart solutions and approaches to those consumers. So they're looking to figure out exactly how do I gain the insights and what insights can I actually leverage to really change that experience for the individual. Most people are talking about that customer experience and how the customer experience itself needs to be intelligent and needs to be smarter in the way that we communicate with customers so that they feel seen, they feel known, they know that you actually know who they are and that you're creating that relationship with a brand. But there's so much more that needs to happen in that entire experience that goes beyond that customer experience and goes all the way back to the supply chain and the back-end systems from a merchandising and a marketing perspective. So Katie's example of how Amazon is changing the industry in relationship to the on-demand, everyone's looking for ways. Before it was just, how do I get to know this person? And we'll talk a little bit about how you can actually understand who that individual is that you're speaking to. But now it's become more about how can you put the power and the control to the consumer about actually how they fulfill that product. And that is a place where together IBM, Blue Wolf, and along with Salesforce has really created an approach and a new way of actually activating from a retail perspective. So when we look at that, the engagement layer that we speak of here, of course, is Salesforce. And it's the entire ecosystem. If you were just in the keynote address, we heard about Customer 360. We heard about MuleSoft and how they're advancing that and taking that further on down the line so that you have that single view of the customer. But there's also the connection to all the back-end systems. And what we're going to talk about here today is we'll show you a couple examples of some things that IBM is doing in connection with our customers in relationship to Salesforce. But it's not just from a product standpoint, it's actually leveraging intelligence. So how does Watson, which is IBM's solution for AI intelligence, complement Einstein? And how do we use both in that environment so that they actually help create that entire experience throughout the entire journey of that customer? So there's three things that really differentiate us in relationship to that. with our customers and what we're seeing in retail space. It's really being able to meet the customers where they are. So we'll give an example. There's a company back in the US called Sally Beauty. You may or may not know them. They're about a 50-year-old company, and they're known for hair care and hair color. And they were going through an identity crisis because they were trying to figure out, as everybody has been, am I in the right place? Should I try to be all things to all people? Should I expand beyond hair care and hair color? And should I now be looking at maybe adding in makeup and perfume? And so they approached our digital strategy services to actually answer that question and help them inform the decision, because they made a decision of every place that they were going. So it's meeting them in that moment, conducting that research, and we'll talk to you about what they decided and where they are now, but meeting them in that moment and being able to align with what they're trying to achieve. Then helping them understand, as Katie mentioned, there's plenty of data. Nobody's short of data right now. It's really what data should I be harnessing and what data is important to activate for this particular consumer. We have the journeys with personas that we're creating, like 5 or 6 different personas, and they can fall within that, but it's going beyond just that journey for the people that you're putting within that category for that particular customer journey. It's how do I meet the individual and really see them in that moment and activate that in the entire journey. So the way we think about it is there's a 4-part journey. It's getting to know her and what's important, what data should we be looking at, and getting to understand who she is. How do we engage her and leverage all the information that we have within our ecosystem in order to activate that in a really positive way? How do we sell to her that's appropriate to her and really understanding who she is so that she continues to come back and we show that we've actually started to build that personal relationship? And then, of course, serving her. And again, this morning at the keynote, they did a beautiful job of showing Customer 360 and where we're going with the interaction of Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Service Cloud. But how do we continue to take that and grow and expand upon that? And then, as you can see in the outside circle, where we really pay a lot of attention to is the back end as well. So how do you make the systems smarter so that you have an omni-channel experience that's smart? You are activating from a smart supply chain, from a smart merchandising marketing, and a smart operations. How do you create that entire experience from a back end that then changes the experience on the front end? And we'll share a little bit about how we approach that. So we look at each one of these on a 3-layer pancake. We look at the data building blocks that you have to collect in each stage of that know, engage, sell, and serve. As well as then after you know what data you're trying to collect, making sure that you have the proper technology, whatever that may be. Obviously, from an engagement layer standpoint, we're all about Salesforce. But on the back end, what systems make sense? Should you be replacing some of the solutions that you have? Again, those questions should be answered after you understand what is the data that you need to collect and where is that data currently. And then throughout the entire process, horizontally across that entire experience, learning and optimizing. So when we look at knowing her, we look to build an Uber profile. So you've got the transaction information, order history. You also have her behavior on the site, and you're collecting that information. Where does she go? How does she go? Where does she drop off? Where does she come back? And continuing to fuel that Uber-proof profile that you can leverage again and again. It's not a static thing. It's something that should be growing and changing. And using geographic data, psychological data, you really have to be gathering all the correct information so, again, you can continue to learn who she is. And then what is the technology that empowers that? And again, collecting that data and ensuring that you're building that, continuing to infuse and grow in her Uber profile. Then taking that information and continually engaging her. So that can go from not only all the information you've collected about her in that Uber profile, but what are some insights that you can gather from where she's searching? What are the devices that she's on? Where else is she engaging with that entire experience? So understanding from a contextual data situation, as well as knowing where she fits within that journey across cohorts and what they are doing, using, again, all that data to continue to understand who she is and engaging her in a personal way. Selling to her is taking all the information you know from knowing her, and now you've actually been engaging her. And this is not a linear process. This is obviously continuing to go and grow and infuse. But in this situation, we know now from an omni-channel perspective, customers want to be able to control that entire supply chain experience. They want to know where inventory is. They want to be able to choose where they're getting that from. They want to be able to decide if I want to go pick it up in a local store or do I want to have that shipped to me, which is the fastest, least expensive way of having you serve me and bring that to me. So really making sure your technologies and your approach support that. from a back-end perspective. And again, learning and optimizing. This also includes, from a retail perspective, do I have the right price? Is it the right product in the right place and at the right time at the right price? And ensuring that you're continuing to understand so that there's no unnecessary markdowns and unnecessary inventory, because if you know where all your inventory is in the entire ecosystem, you can be smart about helping her understand which one she wants it from, because that information will guide that entire experience. And then serving her, as we mentioned before, they did a nice demo of Customer 360. So where and how you infuse Service Cloud into this entire experience, because many retailers forget about this. This is such an important part of building that relationship for the long-term value of that individual customer, is knowing how to support her when she does have an issue, when she does need to do a return, and how best to make that process easier and quicker. And again, learning and optimizing. All 4 of those stages should infuse that entire Uber profile. So when we look at a company such as Adidas or Adidas, they're a $19 billion multi-country organization. And one of their models is to really create a positive customer experience. They want for that to be an easy experience for all the consumers. And what they were looking at from an omni-channel perspective, and they engaged IBM from their IBM OMS solution, was they were looking to find out how can we serve. They started to start with one population, which was in Russia, and they decided they've been having lots of feedback from their customers, and again, they're gathering information, they're learning and growing about who they are, and people wanted more choices from an on-demand shipping standpoint. So they wanted to introduce click and collect. They expected that in that introduction, leveraging a lot of the features of IBM OMS, or formerly known as Sterling, solution, that they would have offer click and collect. They expected that to be about 10 to 15 orders per week. Within the first week, it was over 1,000. They had to shut down quickly to kind of figure out to be able to meet the demand that was there, and now it's over 70% of their orders are actually leveraging click and collect. So being flexible and being able to leverage that capability. Adidas actually went with the full solution of enterprise IBM OMS. What IBM is doing at this point is they're taking a lot of the functionality and the capabilities of supply chain and OMS, and they're starting to offer it as microservices. So an example that we're going to show you now, we're going to give you a live example, is showing inventory visibility. It's a microservice that takes parts of the power of IBM OMS, and it does something crazy. So Thank you. And what it does is that it allows you to have the omnichannel capabilities laying right on top of your existing OMS solution. So it might be a homegrown solution, could be anything else other than IBM solution, and you layer this on top to offer those omnichannel capabilities. And what I'm going to show you right now is with Watson Embedded Agent for Commerce. This is a solution that sits on top of the entire system that you have. So it doesn't matter what you have. If it's IBM, if it's Salesforce, if it's anything. But in this particular situation, we're going to show IBM's inventory visibility microservice connected to Salesforce Commerce Cloud, connected to Salesforce Marketing Cloud, as well as weather. And what this individual, this is from a merchandising perspective, what he would like to do is he has noticed in his recent, he has a new product that's selling like crazy. And leveraging Einstein Commerce Insights, he sees that product is typically sold. He's selling lotions, face lotion, and it's typically sold with a toner. And he decides that, I should probably run a campaign with this, because I really see that I can increase my average order value and have a better experience for the consumers. But before I do that, I want to make sure I have enough product in the New York area in order to run this promotion so I don't create, this one's selling really hot. So what you're going to see is on the left, at the bottom, you'll see my questioning of Watson. So as a merchandiser, I'm going to ask Watson a question about where the product is in this area. Watson Agent for Commerce is connected to all my systems in the ecosystem, so I don't really care where it's going to get this information. I just know he's going to go out and he's going to collect this data for me. He comes back with, okay, so we see on the right, what you're seeing is Watson learning. And this is not typically what you're going to see as a merchandiser, but I think it's really cool, and it's kind of a fun way of you seeing how Watson is learning as we're asking questions. So in this scenario, you'll see the relationship to the questions and the answers and how that continues to grow like a neuron, a brain neuron. So I've asked him the question. He's yielded back where we are in New York, and you can see down at the bottom of the list that we're actually running short in the New York area. If this will work, will be great. There we go. So we're out of stock in some of the areas in New York. So I know now I probably shouldn't run this promotion. But then I'm going to say, well, wait a minute. Is there a shipment that's due into the New York area in the next week? Watson goes out to inventory visibility to get an answer. The first question was actually directly to Commerce Cloud. Now it's going to go to IV and ask that question. And it comes back with, yes, actually there's a shipment due. Here's the route of that shipment. Here's the quantity of that shipment. And there's the expected date. So he's like, okay, well now it looks like I may have enough product in New York to actually run this promotion. But I'm really kind of a nervous Nelly because this product is going really hot and I do not want to get myself into a customer service situation. So I want to ask the question of Watson, is there anything that you can see that could possibly disrupt this order? Watson goes out to weather and asks weather insights for the answer. You can see the neuron continues to grow with the questions that are being asked. And he comes back, and of course, for this scenario, we're going to have a bad situation, right? There's a huge storm that's coming to New York. You're going to be delayed a week or two. And all that information is brought back. So you can see how my skills that I'm building in my relationship with Watson will be different than your skills or your skills. Because every organization, it's about learning and growing. And in this situation, you can see how this supercharges the ability from an operations standpoint to have the data in order to make intelligent decisions about where you're actually running promotions. Another tool that can be leveraged, and we have a number of clients that are using this, Subway and Wendy's, is leveraging MetroPulse. MetroPulse is a product from IBM that actually takes hyper local data that's time sensitive, combines it with your customer information and your data within the organization, and layers a level of cognitive knowledge over that. And so what this is showing, and the hyperlocal data can include weather, traffic, local events, all kinds of things that are just specific to a region or to a specific city. So when you're running promotions, you can get very specific and personalized for those areas. And again, that's leveraging a cognitive Watson layer on top of that information. So just another way that data can be empowered and supported in keeping that customer at the center of that conversation, leveraging MetroPulse. So I started earlier with a conversation around Sally Beauty. Sally Beauty, as I mentioned, is a US-based organization. And they came to IBM because they're in that middle of that identity crisis. Are we in the right business? Should we be doing something else? They had noticed that their average age of their consumer was aging, and they weren't really pulling in millennials. They were one of the first adopters of Salesforce Commerce Cloud, first adopters of ExactTarget, which then became Marketing Cloud. So they had all of the engagement layer that you would possibly want. Each one of those was siloed. They had actually launched their site in 2010, and they let it sit. They figured it would just kind of build it. They will come kind of a philosophy. So what they did is they engaged IBM to answer the question, are we in the right business? The response was, yes, you actually are, but keep them together. Keep hair care and hair color together in whatever you do, and do not branch off to other things. So then they moved on to looking for an agency of record to help them with that whole experience and rebrand not only their digital experience, but their online stores. So together they engaged our IX, which is our interactive services group within IBM, to help them with that rebranding. As part of that rebranding, they went through a whole new site redesign. So we're within, I think, it was supposed to be tonight. I think it's tomorrow night. We're actually launching this site in SFRA. And the beautiful thing about this is they also leverage Endless Aisle. They're implementing IBM OMS and the Watson capabilities that sit on top of that. And they're totally reinventing who they are. As they say, they're bringing themselves into the 21st century from an omni-channel perspective, but then creating the foundation that allows them to grow and change, because they know it's all about creating that personalized experience so that they can engage their customers in a whole new way and engage the millennials. So take a look at their new branding strategy. It's pretty exciting, and you'll be able to kind of catch that live in the next few days. So that is what we wanted to come here today and share with you is how we are supporting putting the customer at the center of experiences in retail and CPG, combining the engagement layer of Salesforce with some powerful solutions that are Watson intelligently provided, and how that's changing and evolving within the ecosystem for retailers and CPGs. Thank you so much for joining us.